with Ghanaian President John Dramani Mahama. From the Castle Osu, the seat of Ghanaian presidency, Mr. Mahama shares his thoughts on the political climate in his country as it prepares for the upcoming elections in December. You're watching Straight Talk Africa, coming to you from Osu Castle, the seat of Ghanaian political power. And our guest today is President John Dramani Mahama. You're most welcome, sir.
Thank you.
What is your vision for Ghana?
I think it's a shared vision because Ghanaians want a stable, democratic country, constitutionally governed under the rule of law. But at the same time, we want to create a country where our people can live in decency and dignity. The difference is that our approaches to achieving that vision, it is a shared vision, and I believe that every Ghanaian wants to see a country that is stable, that is democratic, that is constitutionally governed, a country with a strong growing economy that is able to guarantee jobs to our working population, our young people, a country that guarantees a decent and dignified life to our people, a country where our mothers are not dying in the process of giving birth, a country where children are not dying prematurely from malaria, a country where young people can grow up in a moral environment and feel proud that they are Ghanaians. I think it's a shared vision, and the difference we have is how to achieve that vision. Of course, different political parties have their different orientations, and so if you see us compete in the political space, it's not because the objective is not the same, but because the approaches to achieve the objective are different. But I do believe that even in that competitive space, we can rally enough of the people behind us to be able to move the country towards the vision that we have.
You're so modest, President Mahama, talking about a shared vision. What about some African presidents who are on record saying that they are the only human beings, the only person in their country who has the vision think, which is almost frankly saying that it is only the president in a particular country who can do the thinking, who as an individual knows where the country needs to be headed. What do you say to those colleagues of yours?
I think that was the concept of governance in the 60s and 70s, in the immediate post-independence era. At least for Ghana, that has largely changed, mostly because of the progressive constitution we have. But apart from that, because of the collective experience Ghanaians have had in terms of coming this far, the coup d'etats that took place and all that, often people in those times believed that, they were the alpha and omega of their countries, and they took all the decisions, and everybody had to kowtow. In Ghana today, and in much of Africa now, there are strong civil society organizations, religious leaders, and traditional rulers, and youth groups, and other pressure groups, all have a sense of the kind of life that they want to live. One, a society in which human rights are upheld, a society in which people have a choice to decide who their leaders are. And so with that kind of renaissance taking place across Africa, the age of the dinosaur single vision head of state, has largely changed. African countries are holding elections constantly. Within the last 18 months, 24 African countries have gone to elections. That's unprecedented in history. In the 70s, virtually no African country went for elections. They were all under military dictatorships.
But what about the quality of some of those elections? Someone will tell you that, frankly, some of those elections are selections. They are not elections because, in most cases, They are fake. They do not, frankly, bring or produce results that reflect the will of their people. Is it only good enough to hold an election, no matter how bad it is?
Shaka, even for the leader to acknowledge the need for an election is a step forward. It's better than a military dictatorship. You have no choice who the leader is. So even for the leader to acknowledge that there must be elections is a step forward. And I think that once the people continue to push, eventually those elections will get better. Elections are not perfect, but we can push them to a stage where they reflect the will of the people. Ghana has had experience of 5 elections. Each election has gotten better than the next. And I think that democracy is a process. It cannot be imposed on people. People have to learn democracy and imbibe it. And so it takes a process. And so if they start with selection, eventually it will become election. And so they just must persist and continue to push the process. Ghana didn't become like this overnight. It took a long process to get to this point. And no country should delude itself that once you get rid of the dictator, everything is cozy and nice. Often it will get worse before it gets better. And so I told a lot of our colleagues involved in the Arab Spring and all that, that it will get worse before it gets better. But the important thing is to keep a focus on what the objective is and to have hope that eventually it will become better. In Ghana, our people are beginning to see the dividends of democracy. We've been at it since 1992. And if you look at the standard of living, if you look at per capita income and all that, you're seeing a relative progression in terms of creating a better life for people.
The last time you had an election, it sort of ended in what someone might call a sort of political photo finish. It was simply too close to call. Looking ahead to December, do you sincerely think, if you were to talk to us from the deepest, better part of the bottom of your Ghanaian heart and soul, that you are going to have an election that is free, fair, transparent, and credible?
I have said that probably this election we're going to have is going to be the best election ever we've had so far. And as President of the Republic, I pledge and guarantee that we will do everything to ensure that the will of the people is what carries eventually. We'll make sure that there's security, there's stability, so that people are able to go out and vote and express their will. Ghana has an electoral commission that has very great credibility. And I think that the electoral commission has what it takes to be able to conduct a transparent, free and fair election. And government will support the electoral commission to be able to do just that.
Well, you heard him. You heard President Dramani Mahama. He talks, he's really so modest. He talks about a shared vision. Mm-hmm. In other words, he makes consultations.
Yeah.
But what about a lot of other presidents on the continent, frankly, who say that they are the only ones who have the vision thing?
Yeah,
the Ugandan president, for example, is on record actually saying, I am the only person that has the vision thing. I am the only one who knows where Uganda should be headed. Then you have a Theodore Obiang in Equatorial Guinea,
yes,
who pretty much says the same thing. Mr. Zenawi is said never really to consult people.
Yes, yes.
People talk about Paul Kagame in the Republic of Rwanda.
Yes, you know, this is the saddest aspect of Africa's governance, you know, with the leadership, you know, that we've had, you know. Remember that, you know, when President Obama was in Ghana in 2009, he said this, you know, Africa doesn't need strong men.
Yes.
It needs strong institutions.
But doesn't he support strong men?
But, you know, unfortunately, you know, what we have across the continent, you know, people who pretend to be, you know, strong men. You know, we have, you know, sort of a conclave of former rebel leaders, you know, Zenawi of Ethiopia, Afwerki of Eritrea, Museveni of Uganda, and, you know, Paul Kagame of, and then Kabila, you know. You know, the record with former rebel leaders have not been very good in Africa.
But what about someone who who come and tell you, wait a minute, George, I mean, these people, yes, they may have come as rebel leaders, but they have made a significant difference in their societies.
How?
For example, Meles Zenawe, frankly, has built a lot of roads, a lot of dams, schools, and what have you, Bole International Airport.
Yes.
You have an economy that turned around in Uganda for some people. Rwanda is said to be an example of where things happen.
They have made great achievements, but they are not sustainable. This is what we know. Received wisdom and accumulated evidence says, okay, look, you don't need democracy to engineer an economic, miracle. Ivory Coast was not a democracy under Houphouët-Boigny, but you need democracy to sustain that economic miracle or that economic success.
But these are leaders who say that the important thing to focus on is service delivery, not democracy. Are these two mutually exclusive in your view?
Well, they're not mutually exclusive. Yeah, like I said, you can engineer economic success story without democracy. This is what the Asian tigers did.